Today is August 16, 2016, afternoon work session.
When I was there, well, they came up with that we had 2 appointments.
There's 2 county commissioners, 1 school board member, and 2 citizens at large. The county commissioner.
The citizens at large, we
chamber.
appoint a citizen at large.
No, we didn't. Not since I've been on it.
I didn't think so.
I think if we read the statute, we do 1 citizen at large, and they do 1 citizen at large. No, I mean,
We have not done that. I'm gonna tell you. We have not done that.
we put somebody on who might be staying on.
No, they've changed since I've been on there. The 2 citizens have changed. But they were appointed by the county commissioners. Or Cheryl Edwards, the lawyer, I'm not sure which, but we had nothing to do with it.
I would say, God bless, because it was really hard trying to get somebody.
Well, it's specific to that industry, so the people that serve at large are people that might have been appraisers that were on.
I think it was Gerald Lagasse.
I can't remember Gerald Lagasse, but anyway.
Well, I know they did when I was on the board, they redid the statutes and all of that, and maybe.
They got to bill us for a number of years, that's the most significant part.
Shirley, how frequently do they meet?
They meet in September, and then they start meeting in the spring, we meet about 4 or 5 times a year. Okay.
4 or 4 times a
They're
year.
quick. Meetings are very, very quick.
Why do you?
And they're usually 9 o'clock in the morning.
Why do you even meet? Because you don't ever do anything.
Thank you very much for that. That's what a couple of citizens said.
It's true. I've been through it. That's exactly the truth.
Well, I mean, to do it in person, I mean, that's valid, that we are required to do this, correct? So this is the one that we are required to do.
We are required to do it, and we are required
To attend.
to pay for some of the costs. When you look
Yeah,
at what
right.
our dues and membership,
Right.
although I don't think it should be dues and memberships, I think we ought to have a separate line for it, because it looks like our dues and memberships are very high,
How much
when
is
in
that
fact.
one? I can't remember. 9?
Well, it's higher now because we're paying in arrears because they.
No, I think we're done, we're caught up now.
Okay, I had a question.
Well, I'd like to see that as a separate line on the budget anyway, for a value adjustment for it, so we know what the heck it is. But perhaps you could check in about the citizen at large, and if, check to see if that changed, whether or not we're supposed to appoint or not. Not that I cared, it was a pain in the butt trying to find someone.
We haven't done that since I got on.
The email we got just
And
asked
we
for,
changed the folks.
an alternate.
We need a person and an alternate.
I'll nominate as an alternate. How about that? Who wants to be the main person? Let's throw myself in there.
I'll do it.
That community alliance,
You know what, Sherry,
Well, let's
let's do
get
it.
on
Say
with
it one
this.
person.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
this,
okay.
let's finish this.
Let's get this one
So
done.
I will put myself in fairly
You
as
can be
the
the
alternate.
Alternate, and I'll just
But
do
it's
it.
like
Wait,
Frank.
till Eric gets on the board and
You better show up.
It's like chair and vice chair,
Eric would
then
like
next
it.
year you become the main person.
Well, maybe I'll have a little more flexibility then, so we'll see.
Wanna
That,
do it again, Jane?
Yeah, I'll do it again.
good, Jane. We're gonna
Bridget's
take it for
the
the
alternate,
team.
and we'll go forward.
Okay.
What happens if no one's available? It's a reschedule?
I remember reading all that stuff. The first time I did it, I read everything.
Why?
So I could, well, just the first time I did it, I read everything, knew everything, and got there and wasn't asked one question.
Well, you
So I'm not
basically
doing that.
legally can't overturn it, so what difference does it make if
I
you go when
know,
it's
but
about?
I was in office going in there,
Better to be informed than
like,
Community Alliance.
I read them all too.
that.
Shirley puts that back, I know.
Is any given child,
That's a great one. Their meetings were tough for me at the time because I had a recurring, so Sherry was at one
let's
point-
start at the top. Any given child, is that one that,
That's what I want to keep.
where's that?
I'm saying, is that one that we are required to fill, or is that one that you want to be
It's
on?
one that I want to be on, and I've been on it since the inception of the Kennedy partnership.
I'm sure.
Okay.
Value adjustment is my my understanding.
And the Community Alliance of Sarasota.
No, Community Alliance
It's
is
great,
also
is that
required.
also required? So is it a member of the district or of the board? Because that was discussed last time.
Oh, it's been a,
Because, and when I would gone a handful of times, is that, and Sherry Reynolds was also kind of representing the district, but now I know that's not the case. So, Lori, do you have any input on that?
You're talking about the Community Alliance?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because I know in terms of the human, well, no, I think, because they tend to be a health focus, isn't that the one that tends?
All over the place, but yeah, I mean,
They look
huge
through,
umbrella of different things.
and they look through groups that are speakers, I think they vet those. Like,
Yeah, more
I
health
think
education.
it is likely that Susie DeVos would be
on that would be perfect.
would be on that, but I will check, I don't know.
Because I thought, we discussed it last year, was whether or not it was board or
Yeah.
representation from the district, and we
well,
did
Sherry,
have that representation.
Sherry kept pinch hitting for us, and she got off for a while because they said you have to get off for a while, Sherry, and then she got back on.
She was great with it too.
Yeah.
I was on it, I was bored.
You were on it?
Boy, yeah, it's bored.
You were bored?
I know when it
Did
first
you
came
actually
out.
go?
It's a good,
When it really first went, Stuart Stearns was.
Oh,
it
okay.
is, it's a big group.
Comes out.
All right.
Hard to get sometimes, so maybe see if the district, it's a
But-
monthly meeting and it's not easy to always
Well,
at
it's a long,
lunchtime.
it's a long meeting too. isn't it?
Yeah, it's an hour and a half to 2 hours, so it's one that.
Well, and they were,
go with that commitment.
when I was there, they were, having, what do you call it, when they were coming up with their strategic plan and all of
Well,
that,
and
and it was like, give me a break.
Well, and to be fair, especially if it's a board member, there are certain legislative things that they'll push forward, and I think that you have to be careful with that without referencing it as a board member coming back and making sure that we all agree on whatever that is. So, I was a novice as well as when I went into it. Definitely think it's an amazing group. I just don't know if that's better suited for a district personnel from the health side versus a board member.
And it seems like they all go around the table and say what they're doing. I mean, it didn't,
Yeah.
Action items were
drug,
it's a big group too, so.
so,
I served on
It-
the
it-
Community Alliance.
Are we gonna ask Susie?
so we're gonna find out if it's
check with
required that a
Sylvia.
board member
Make sure she knows.
serve.
I think it is.
Who can
I'm
require?
telling you, I think
There's,
it is.
there's required and required.
Right.
There is
Required.
statutory requirements, this is not a statutory requirement. But an organization can put in their own operating rules that they are going to want a representative or a board, but that there's nothing that would then require, there's nothing that then would impose that requirement unless it's in state statute. And I will tell you, the value-added one is the only one that
Just
you-
Value adjustment.
Value added. So true. Value adjustment.
You have no value added.
So the rest of these may have it in their own operating procedures. And we tried to get out of the one with the county, and then it was political pressure to get back in. So sometimes you can get out of them, and sometimes
The
you can't.
drug-free schools, that's one that, we're not required,
No,
but it's one that you do by choice.
You do it again,
Yeah.
Karen?
Yep.
The FSBA Board of Directors,
For district?
I think, did I just go off of that? Or am I on for another year?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Well,
Oh, no, wait a minute, wait a minute. I put you on, right?
well, I don't think we had, we had another election, so,
They change it every 3 months. I think just Suncoast.
so I think this year it's Charlotte County.
It is Charlotte.
Yes, it is.
And I don't know if it'll be Lee Swift. Does anybody know how Lee is?
Yeah, he's doing much better.
We ought to find that out when we're down there
I
on
was
the
there.
31st.
And who'll be the alternative?
Who'll be the...
And the legislative liaison is
Hey,
gonna,
wait, we're
gonna
not
be
finished with the water flow. You have Charlotte County, then you need an alternate.
So we need...
doesn't Charlotte County choose the alternate?
No,
No,
we do.
the alternate comes from us.
I'll do it.
Good.
Once a month if we need it.
Okay.
The legislative liaison, you can stay on that? Juvenile Justice Circle, is that that's an appointed position? The governor appointed you, right?
No, not this one. This one I sit on it for the superintendent.
You've been on this for what?
20 years.
So you're appointed by the superintendent?
It's not, but it's also not statutory
No, it's
requirement.
not.
Okay.
Oh, I'm missing one. We're missing
The County Health Advisory Committee, that's the one that the school nurse and stuff is on?
Yeah, Sherry used to do this.
But that's where they tell us,
I mean, that would be interesting.
that's the one where,
I need to
They
know
meet
when
quarterly.
they meet, how often they meet.
yeah, they meet quarterly, and when they do give reports on, like when,
30 till 5. Quarterly.
But what time do it? Pardon? What time do it?
3:30 till 5.
All right, I'll do that one.
It's a really interesting.
No, yeah, there's
the Human Service Advisory Committee, there's a star by that.
It's not in statute, it's in their, the county.
But I think that they want a representative, not a board member.
No, they want a board member.
They wanted a
Remember,
board
we
member.
tried to get out of this one, and
I did get out
then,
of it.
uh,
It's very,
remember,
very-
they insisted it's in their rules.
But
What's
how can they make us, how can the county commission make us do something?
Now, they did, and then it becomes political.
That's the problem, that's why I was on it and I got off of it.
And then a school board member is telling county commissioners how to spend their money. It didn't make any sense to
But
me.
we're representing, it's not.
No, it's very political. I
Because
was
it
on
comes
the-
down
And not
to-
only that, but the timing was, there was a whole, you know how our advisory board is gonna have to read all of those, applications? That's what they have. They have all these applications, and you have to go, and you have to go look at the place, you have to interview the
Very-
people.
for-
It's a
it's very
lot of time
intensive.
intensive, and it's at the same time we do our charter school
And
applications.
then you got $5 million worth of requests and you got $1 million to go out. So you get to just sit there and go around and everybody goes, I think we should fully fund that. And then you go through everybody, you're gonna fully fund everybody. I'm thinking, what am I doing here, people? What is this, the federal government? We just give everybody what they want?
Not a political one.
So, are you saying that, I mean, there's been nobody going to those
We
meetings?
had nobody go.
Well, then let's push it for another year, I say. Just don't offer.
Well, I know
Maybe they won't know.
Sherry Reynolds was on it.
Well, nobody's going to be on it right now, because it's too time intensive.
Just don't bring it up.
I know I had to walk by those offices every time I went to the drug-free partnership meetings, and I'd always like kind of
Staff.
crawl by
And
thinking,
it's-
oh
and there's
geez.
nothing of real benefit for a staff,
Not
for
even
us.
close.
So it doesn't,
Well,
Anyway.
when they were looking at early learning as one of their priorities, that was one thing, but, you know, now it's all homelessness and drug prevention, and it's like,
And it changes every year.
Suncoast Workforce Development
I
Board.
will do that one. If anyone if anyone else wants to do it, but I'd like to nominate myself for that one.
Well, we got new board members
Okay,
too.
okay.
But I don't think that it's anything to do with their bylaws. Mary Helen Kress asked me to be on the board years and years ago, so I don't know if they're,
Oh, so maybe they
I don't know if it's
it may not be required even within their bylaws, but it's,
So if they
But does
ask,
Todd
give your
Bowden
name,
goes, doesn't he, or
otherwise-
some
Yeah,
from?
that works.
Okay.
That works. Yeah.
And the tobacco-free partnership is something that I was on through the American Cancer Society, but it was helpful with the school board.
Their tobacco.
But I also see that there was, you know, some candidate when he was running for the school board was like championing stuff about tobacco-free, and I'm like, well, I got a place for you. I think we ought to put them on.
But I was like, who's that?
If you said he, you kind of gave it away.
I don't remember that.
If she
Um,
said running for school board.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't know, wasn't there one this week or
It's
last?
Thursday, I'll be there.
Yeah, I forwarded the information and you had him put on the list. It sometimes gets exciting, sometimes there's more than 5 people there. And there were times when there were a lot, and then there's a lot of things that the kids from the SWAT teams do.
Now, they
But
leave
they don't
time
all
for-
get out in time to be there.
They leave time for like smoke breaks and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not going to be so stressful, I need a cigarette. is it?
I chaired that last year. And then now I think we gave it to the kid from Pineview.
All right, we got that.
All right, you got everything?
Okay. Do we have to let them know? Because
I'm not sure how that works. The Value Adjustment Board, yes, I've got an email they're waiting for, and I'll let them know.
All the other ones, only when they ask.
Yeah, yeah.
The names, no, I'm kidding.
It's just a list we made a couple years ago, trying to figure out
Who was on
who's
first?
on first.
Right.
Jane,
Lobbyist. As we have talked about in the past, we're one of the few school districts in the state that don't have a lobbyist. And particularly of this size and greater, we're probably the only one.
the school district doesn't, not
Right.
don't.
Oh.
We don't, but a district doesn't.
Thank you, Shirley.
You're gonna get killed today.
I'm telling you, keep it up. And so-
I just wanted to let him know because I was picking on Eric this morning.
But anyway, here's my whole
That's
contention.
about him.
You know, we by catch or catch can work on things, and I really think that we're penny wise and pound foolish, and that we don't have a lobbyist. Last time, we chose a lobbyist, and we really didn't get the lobbyist we should have gotten. We used a, procurement process for tires or whatever else we buy that's a commodity, not the way we should choose a lobbyist. We should all get to know that person and, do a special contract, which as I understand, we can do that. And I think that we ought to go out and find a lobbyist,
That suits us.
Well,
soon that suits us, that we can work with.
but I think that, I don't disagree but it depends on, I mean, I shouldn't say I don't disagree, it depends. I think that when we put together Sarasota County's legislative platform, there's something there that we really need that's unique to Sarasota, where we need a lobbyist. That's where I would see more focused and benefit, because we do participate in other organizations that have their position and their lobbying legislators based on certain platforms. Is there anything in Sarasota County that's unique that a lobbyist will do for us? That's kind of where I see the value in it, if we have something that's unique
Well,
to Sarasota County.
Well, I think
it's
this
unique. I think
changes
it's
to
just looking out for
7029
us.
is,
I think it's just looking out for us, like in 29, the legislation that we talked about this morning with construction. I just think, we're kind of pulling up the things as they happen to us. We're not proactively working with folks on the education committee and appropriations. And, I want somebody that's looking out for us. We had an organization that looked out for Broward and Miami-Dade County, and we got left over, which was nothing. I can't tell you, because I was dealing with them a lot, how many times, Zoe knows, they canceled on us. They couldn't come here for this. They couldn't come here for that. We went to Tallahassee. Whoops, they couldn't be with us. We had to have it was really kind of a fiasco of a year of not getting any service at all. And I just think that we need to visit this again and look at and choose a lobbyist that will help us with whatever our platform is, and look out in the future. I mean, there are people in Tallahassee that want to destroy public education. That's not a myth, that is a reality. And I think we all need to go forward and make sure that public education is at the forefront of the legislature, and we need to do our part to find someone who will help us to get the best bang for our buck in this legislative session. And we'll have a lot of new legislators coming forward, hopefully, and it'll be interesting to see how have they go forward. We have nobody at this point in time that serves on a legislative committee for education. Either appropriation or, and you know, they give us lip service and they offer help along the way, but they're really doing very little. If we hadn't had Negron, and that was just something up above, if we hadn't gotten on Negron's docket through that lobbyist, that specialized lobbyist, that laser-like lobbyist we had, we would have never gotten that money for Simcoe's Technical College. And he then went to Nancy Dietert and others to help us, you know, go get that forward. But he saw something he liked from listening to his friend who was a lobbyist that we had hired by, you know, sheer luck. And I just think that there's just too many things coming up, there's too many things happening to us, and we need to be at the table. And as Nancy has said to me, not once, but 25 times, nobody respects you if you don't have a lobbyist.
I've heard that from local delegation and from other people out there. The ticket price is large, and if we're not, and I don't disagree with you, you don't want to be behind the ball, you only want to be in the front of it, but again, kind of going back to even FSBA pushing through, you know, following, keeping us up to date, perhaps that's after the fact, and same with the coalition, for example, well, maybe we're not on the front end of it from a Sarasota standpoint or what have you. So I do see your point. I worry about the cost. Now, other districts have piggyback, or they have joint contracts with lobbyists, with different counties. I don't know if that's something we would look at. I just worry about the price.
That's what I was thinking.
I worry about the price.
Can we get on with another?
Well, you pay, sometimes you have a lobbyist that works for someone else, but you pay and you have a contract with that lobbyist.
Yeah.
So it's irrelevant. Where I always saw the problem was, what if we had a lobbyist and they had Manatee County and they had Charlotte County and some of our surrounding counties, and there became an issue that would cause them to have a conflict? That's always an issue. And some of these lobbyists that are really good that we looked at before, you know, their contracts with other school districts tie them up.
Yeah, but sometimes they can get a release. It depends.
We have to have time for it to go before the school board. In Palm Beach County, for example, in Broward, they have that.
Well, and I think another important aspect of it, you say, should we get a lobbyist? Who should we get? And how do we ensure they represent what this board as a whole want the issues represented? I mean, because, you know, just like Sarasota and Manatee might have a conflict on something, there might be some board members that have a conflict on an issue too. So we have to look at how we handle those things, and I think it's a little more touchy situation than...
Well, I agree that those could be written into a contract, or we can find those out up front. But if it costs us $50,000 or $80,000, what is the return on investment if something happens that will really impact us in our bottom line? Will it be probably something 50,000 or less, or 80,000 or less? No, probably it will be something with much larger.
Well, right now we're how much ahead on the one we, you know.
Well, that's right. We still have that money in the budget, right?
No, I meant how much money ahead are we paid what, 50,000 and got $1 million?
We paid.
Oh, you're talking about.
We paid 40 and got 3 million. 2 of it was ours. 1 million was for Sarasota County Library. That's the first year.
I think the changes to 7029 have a potential to truly impact us, and I think us more than some of the other counties, because of the chiller stations, because of the other things we put in the ed specs, you know, that we reduce the cost of maintenance.
But all the other things that we haven't even looked at in that, I read through that, it just made me madder and madder as I read more and more. I'm like, oh.
Well, you know, and that's where it takes, there's no way, I think we saw Nancy when she said, oh no, that was at Tiger Bay, when she said, you know, sometimes your appointment is walking me from my office to the meeting room. You don't have time to discuss those changes in that time. And you've got to be able to have someone that's up there that can meet with her on those
All we
off
do
times,
is
or
lip
whoever.
service. What we do when we go to you know,
Yeah.
and Bridget knows this well, the kinds of things that you do in session, you gotta do the work before session starts.
Oh, yeah.
You've gotta be on the front end of writing bills and sponsoring bills
Well, and
and
if
helping, and once you get there, that's nice that we're there, but we're not gonna get anything.
I will agree with you that there's all great discussions ahead of time and even during, but if you're not there and things are moving fast, like it's frustrating during session when you read through it and you're like, oh, I want to be in Tallahassee so I can be in front of these people.
Well, I know.
I do recognize.
In the 90s, you know, Janice Me was up there almost every day we were in session. And I can't remember who else would go up there, but, you know, Janice Me was there a lot. And that ends up costing. So, I mean, I think we ought to maybe look at it again and see if we can get someone that,
I would revisit it.
Yeah, I really think we need to look at it and address it, I mean,
how do we go about, I mean, if we didn't like the process before,
there's a special contract that we can go through, correct, Lori? We don't have to go through a procurement and a bid process like we
It
did
doesn't have to
before.
be the traditional bid, but it is, you've got to protect yourself in terms of how you make this decision that, so I know there have been some districts that, you know, have gotten in trouble, so I just,
How so?
well, if you just can't,
Friends with the law firm.
yeah, you just can't make a decision to contract, because this is a high dollar amount, and there's other people that would contest
Or
that,
works for a
why
law
were
firm.
we excluded from the process? So let me talk to Mitzi in terms of what a process might be, and we'll get that in writing so that we can discuss that at your next workshop.
could Bill Vogel or somebody from FSBA also clue in on
I think they could probably help, I really do.
Well, I'll work
They
with,
may have some contracts.
but it's also, you know, you can't always piggyback on a contract, but maybe an
Okay.
example. But I'll talk to Mitzi, we'll talk to
Yeah, good
FSBA
idea.
or wherever, and see and I'm just focusing on process now.
Right.
What is an option process where the board can be more hands-on, but yet protected in the decision
Yep.
of identifying a lobbyist?
So we'll put this again on our next workshop.
And if I get something ahead of time, I'll just send it whenever I get it, so you could be reviewing it.
Will that be an afternoon workshop or a morning workshop to have feedback on this?
I don't, but whatever your pleasure is.
Um,
Why don't we put it in the morning, so if Mitzi can be there to answer any questions,
Good.
we can have a discussion.
Which brings us to future workshop discussions. And somebody asked how we go about doing that and whatnot, and so that we have understandings between morning and afternoon sessions. I thought maybe we could answer any questions that might come about there, and also the location of the future workshops. Of course, there are some people that think we should just sit at the same table for the whole time, and we've explained how the staff needs time to break it down and have lunch and give us time to go back for the 3 o'clock meeting. But I was talking about maybe having it in the adjoining room. Was it A and B over there? Is that what they called?
Maybe.
Is there anything mechanically that would prohibit you from taking the information you
No,
need?
I record off of my computer, so I can set that.
Would anybody have a problem
But
from
we
just
have no
moving?
television.
We don't have television here.
They don't have television here.
No, right, but I mean, if it was to have television, we would not have it there, so what's the?
No, it's not. It's so that we don't have to
You know.
haul up over here and haul back down there. And then there's that concern that, well, when we were talking about the bathrooms and how people wanted to listen to that discussion and where are you and all of that, and so that if we could just move to the next room rather than moving upstairs.
Fine with me, but sometimes that room is used for other things.
That's right. That's why we have to.
Next to the board room,
I guess I'm trying to figure out what the issue
A and
is.
B.
where we were this morning.
But the only problem with A and B is, where we were this morning?
Well,
No.
you open up
No,
the
that's-
line.
Oh, okay.
Adjoining
That's
that.
not accommodate anyone, okay,
Yeah, on the
okay,
other
that's what
side.
I'm.
The issue is so that we don't have to haul our stuff upstairs, and for the public that's trying to follow us and what happens, especially in campaign years, that they don't know where we are, or how to find us.
Well, they almost got lost today.
They must have.
Well, they all kind of left when we started talking about that bill. And I would like to just move over there so we don't have to go up and down on all of our stuff.
Fine with me.
That's good.
I'm all on board for that, so I certainly.
It would offer more transparency. Some people want that. And the afternoon workshops are generally where we. This is for the your benefit, so you understand. Afternoon workshops. No, I'm talking to you. Afternoon workshops are where we discuss issues that might be bubbling up, that we have questions on, that we might want to discuss. And morning workshops are generally when we, the superintendent wants to get some idea from us what direction we want to go on, or if we have presentations from staff. What we were running into before is, I mean, people would say they want to hear this from staff or they want that, and so staff was having to make all these reports on that. So we kind of talk them out first here to see if there's agreement that we want to make staff do that work for us to come here, because I think that 7029 was a good example. I mean, we want to know in whether they want to do that or not. So that's kind of what that's about. So any other issues, questions? So we're
Well, I
gonna.
kind of thought it was about items for future workshops. And I do actually have one because.
Oh yeah, well that's where you can bring that up too.
Having watched the last board meeting, I think this board ought to take a stand on this whole bathroom thing. And I think we ought to do it soon.
I agree.
On what?
The transgender bathroom issue, that you guys keep kicking it down month after month, and we get 15 or 20 or 30 people come every board meeting to discuss it. And I know that certain people don't want to be put on record as to where they stand on it.
But
But
it
I
was
think
just
it's-
pulled before the Supreme Court, or the Supreme Court just took action on it.
Circumstance.
I'm saying I am not comfortable with what this school district is doing, the one that I'm a board member of, what we're doing with the transgender bathroom issue, which is making it a school-by-school decision. And that's a policy issue, that's something the school board is supposed to do, and that's something we're supposed to vote on, and we're supposed to workshop on. I think it falls into this discussion very well, but we sit up there every month, and one side comes and brings 20 people, and then the other side brings 20 people, and we just keep doing this, and we keep kicking it down the road, and they keep
So
on
put
going.
it on the agenda.
And we stand up there like we're a bunch of mutes.
Well, we had, well, some of us tried to say something.
Well, it goes back, our other thing is we don't respond to that. And then if one person on a subject like this, when one person responds, typically the chair, because she's running the meeting, as I would if I was running the meeting, then you get one side presented, and people assume that the board thinks that direction. So I just think it's time to move on this.
We had the attorney basically reinforce to us that it would be, if we took a stand one way or another, it would probably lead to court action.
Surely everything
I
is
even
going to
asked
lead
for
to court action.
reiteration on that, and I said, quite frankly, any action at this point, even our case-by-case scenario, is exposure for a lawsuit, period. It doesn't, I mean, it's certainly a hard issue. My biggest issue is, I know it's going to be played out in the courts, it's going to take forever, and as an elected official of this county whose job is to oversee policy, and we're basically skirting it under the rug, I don't think we're doing our job. And I think that while we probably have a diverse idea of where we go from here, or there's misconceptions on what the public thinks we think or whatnot, we're not
I don't
even
think the
talking
public
about
has a clue where
We're
the
not
court
even
stands
talking
on
about it, and I certainly don't think we could, work through any issues without talking about it. And I know it's not an easy one. I certainly think it has a lot of emotion and is very, but I think we can handle, I think we certainly don't sit on our hands. I 100% agree with Frank, and I think it's very frustrating to the public that we're not doing it, because it doesn't matter what side you're on. But, and to Art's point, I think, he certainly said it doesn't matter what we do. Now, what his point was, we could go down one road and then then the courts weigh in, and then we may have to reverse something, but that's going to take years, if not months certainly, but not years. So I think we're neglecting our role as board members.
And it's my point is, I think that what we're doing now, I don't agree with. On the case by case, on both the case to case issues and the kicking it down the road, wait for the Supreme Court to make a decision, because everybody knows that's going to be probably when Eric's no longer a school board member, when the Supreme Court makes a decision.
So do we want it on the workshop, or do we want, well, you know what? You and I, Caroline and I went to a meeting on how to write policy. What do you do on policy? And the thing is that one of the first things they say is, what you do when you're writing policy is you come up with, here's the policy, and then you have public discussion, public workshops where you invite the public in to discuss the policy. You know, just like the one that we had, bullying. I mean, one of the things that new policy said, we will have student input and parent input on how we're going to do our bullying policies. And it's like, oh, well, we didn't really have any group discussions on that. So it's like, if we're going to have a discussion on transgender, if we have to come up with, I think we have to have town hall meetings on the issues. I think that's what FSBA showed, that we have it. We open the discussion, open.
I don't know of any district that has school board policy on transgender.
No.
There is no,
Well, not on transgender, but certainly on who uses what bathroom, I think there's.
They do not.
There's no policy on.
They do not.
No, but wait, but don't let's mince words here, because you're right. And I think Art even clarified, there are districts that have included, which Broward is referenced on a regular basis, that has policies and,
Procedures.
Recommended procedures in what to follow.
And training.
Which is what I believe a large part of a certain community is pushing forward and recommending as part of.
And they're the only ones I know that have it in writing
now,
at all.
There are, because of actions taken, there have been boards that are clarifying current policies that are in place and identifying what the definition in their eyes as policymakers is of the word sex, and whether or not gender identity is included in that. That is where any potential changes have been made.
You mean in the discrimination policies?
That is correct. That is correct.
But the other part of the discussion is the fact that we apparently have no policy on that a boy should use the boys' bathroom and the girl, because that's the way it was when I went to school. But nobody had to define that because it was never up for debate.
I'm just trying to clarify.
But then, seriously, Frank, I mean, we didn't have a Nate Quinn when you went to school either. I mean, look at Nate Quinn.
We can't have this conversation right now.
Nate looks like a boy.
Let me.
I mean, do you want him to go to a girl's bathroom?
Let me do this, because I think there's been lots of discussions and hearing of citizens on the issue, but let's bring you up to date. In the state of Florida, what is the current status in different districts relative to this issue in terms of what is school board policy or procedure? So we know clearly, and it's not just through the media, understanding where different districts are and who's has an OCR complaint and who has a lawsuit, so that you get the status of current districts, so that at least we have factual information and accurate information on what other districts have. And we're not relying just on hearing of citizens to get that information, because some of what has been said is inaccurate.
Oh, yeah.
So I will ask Art to bring us either at the September or the October, depending on his timeline. He says preparing for some suits, so I've got to give him that he would get an updated list, district by district, of what their status is, with the information that he is able to garner from the school board attorney. So would that be, as well as give you an update on the current of any court cases?
We kind of did that at the last meeting.
At the last meeting,
He didn't do
said-
the status so much of the district's positions. He has previously. At the last one, it was focusing on the courts.
Yeah, the last time he said that there is, I don't know the names of the counties now, but there was one county that had a pro-transgender policy and another one that was an anti-transgender policy, for better words, and they are both being sued.
Correct. But I also think as we move forward and put this on a workshop, that it's relevant to pull the policy language or lack thereof, or procedural language, because if you use Obama's directive, which I've gone on record that I'm not a fan of, it does not specify transgender, it says gender identity. And I think those, as policymakers, those differentiation, which will probably include art, need to be,
I will
direction
get the
to
verbiage,
discuss them.
that he'll get what verbiage is out there in terms of what other districts have used, whether it's, which would be only in procedures, although that interpretation of the discrimination sometimes is the impact of what
Do we
that
have-
And then,
Do we have written in procedure that boys use boys? So
Yeah,
for
I mean-
for 50 years or 100 years, have they just been happening to go to?
because there's a lot of things that are not written in school board policy or procedures that occur, distributing supplies to teachers. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of actions.
Even the current, for better or for worse, the current way it's being handled on the quote-unquote case by case, that's not written anywhere, correct?
No, it is not. I mean, there's
So-
many
We're
things
just
that
making
in
it up
terms,
as we go along.
And from a exposure standpoint, from a legal standpoint, any ambiguity in that situation is certainly exposure for us.
but
Well-
it is something that we, in terms of administration, it's not that we are not part of those conversations. We're in constant, I mean, there's many things that staff handle that are not school board policy in terms of how to handle certain situations as they arise.
I understand
but they're
completely,
saying
but
they don't like the way you're handling it now, or the
what I'm
district is
saying
handling
is
it.
in my opinion, there are things that the board ought to take responsibility for. If the board is actually over policy.
We also have to look at, when we're looking at that, is the Florida High School Athletic Association. Because they say, don't they, that we have to let them play?
There's many, many very specific rules in terms of that, and it's, frankly, it follows the NCAA. I mean, it's something in terms of allowances, but it's different than any school board policy because it has a whole team of people. I mean, there's a lot of very specific issues relative to that wouldn't be relevant in this situation.
My biggest concern, and I'll just say this, and that's it, is that I've looked at Broward, I've been to Broward, I've talked to people about this on both sides of the house. I don't want any student bullied. I don't want any student marginalized. I don't want any of our students going home and taking virtual classes because they're afraid to come to school. I don't want students dropping out and doing homeschooling. I can't get a count. I can't even find anyone who can give me a count of how many students we have. I know the transgender population is growing. People are coming out more and more. But I will say this, the sensitivity that we have, the education that we experience at our schools, a safe haven for students, making sure they have a safe place to go. And there are some clubs and other things at every school that are working out quite well, is my biggest concern. So it's more education and more at the school level, the fact that our students are not being marginalized and not being afraid to come to school and bullied. And I know everybody is bullied, yes, I do know that. But it's much larger to me than bathroom policy.
It absolutely is, and that's the discussion is beyond the identification of transgender, because you bring in the gender identity aspect, and there's a whole gamut of things that need to be addressed if we're addressing it as policymakers. And it goes well and beyond bathrooms. And I think this discussion shouldn't happen in this room any longer because of the nature and interest of the public, but I am happy that you brought it up, that it does get continued to be discussed, because I feel that we are not doing our job.
I meant the board to discuss it. It's getting discussed every
Well, I know,
board
but
meeting
for
it
us
gets
to
discussed
try to
an
move
hour
forward
minimum.
with some level of a solution, and I think we can do that by discussing it at a workshop and really getting into it.
So are we going to have that update at our next workshop in the
I will
morning
see-
session?
It will be either in the September or the October, depending on what Art needs in terms of time to be able to get actual written words in terms of what other districts are doing in terms of whether it's policy or procedures.
And I'm sure that once it goes on our workshop agenda, there'll be people at our meetings.
I would assume so.
So, okay. Any other future workshop discussions while we're there?
The ed spec was something you brought up.
Oh, yeah, the ed specs.
I don't know what timeline and how that would work, but I think you brought up a very valuable point, and I would be.
Let's wait until, hopefully we can, well, at least until after the election, because we now have ways that other people can come in, even if they're not members yet. What time that ed spec discussion for our new board members would be, because it was a very good discussion, and
Provisions of 7029, hopefully.
Well, when do we have another full school new construction
It
on?
would be, when we pushed it out a year, it's the next elementary, and so I think it's like, they're looking maybe in 3 years. So typically, that's when you update your ed specifications, because you want the technologies
Yeah.
change, needs change, and so you do that review process well before you start building your next school. It will be an elementary, will be the next school. I don't know if it may be too early to do it now, because you
Right.
don't know of some of the changes.
well, and also what might happen with the bill,
So
too.
my recommendation was push that off, but it is something this board will need to do before they build their next school.
You might want to meet with Scott and get copies of the ed specs. Have fun reading. The legislative issues for the school board, and then for our joint workshop and greater consortium, and I don't know if they'll all be the same or not. But I know, I think from this morning, that we want to see those changes to 7029 regarding the more clarification on exemptions to allow better buildings to be built. So it would be, what would we call, well, we'll refer to that, the House Bill 7029 regarding, we can put the section in and whatnot. So what we want to do is more
They put it in a format that was typical of what you do with your legislature, the last page. So if you're comfortable with that, I think our recommendation would be just incorporate that in your legislative platform.
I brought the wrong folder.
Which one is that? Because I did not receive.
I was reading the one.
It's in the back of
This
the
was
read-ahead.
in the read-ahead,
Yeah.
the separate. You didn't get any of that. That doesn't,
She didn't get her red folder. I put those in my car. But I don't have,
So I've been flying blind here.
that was weird, because
That is-
we need to check, because then it wasn't delivered. Did you get it,
no, you got your packet, but the red thing wasn't in there?
you got
The only
this?
thing I got was.
I think you had this.
No, the only thing that I got was the new.
Superintendent? Did you get
Envelope.
this?
No. The new superintendent's
Oh.
application.
And your mail?
And my mail, that was it,
But there was no red folder.
no.
Eric got yours.
And nobody got two.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
What's the last page?
All right.
Because I asked them to write it in the way that it could be presented as part of the platform, and so he looked at your platform previously to get kind of the same format.
I don't have that.
It's kind of wordy, though.
You don't have
I
to
already
see
put it
it?
in my car.
Oh,
But it's specific enough without being language. They're still going to be doing specific language change in the consortium.
Okay.
But this is, it's
Yeah.
specific to the ways that they specifically want flexibility. So I think it's necessary that you're that specific.
You know, when we're looking at this and we go to the delegation, could we, because I would think that we want this on our delegation, and we also want to discuss this with Manatee and Charlotte County.
Yes.
Can we have Scott there to give us a little thing like he did to us for the other the other boards, and
Are you talking about the joint?
the joint
Workshop.
meeting, the joint workshop, and probably when we go to the legislative delegation meeting?
You've only got so few,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
doesn't work, it doesn't, you don't have
Well,
enough
he
time
needs to
at the
meet 'em one-on-one.
delegation. So I would not
All right, no.
recommend that, but it depends on your format that you have with your joint meeting if you allow staff to do something, because I mean,
Okay.
that's kind of an agreement among the board members.
But
You
maybe
can
he
have
can
it
have-
as the topic, and Scott can certainly be there if there's a question.
Okay,
But I don't know what their format is, and those can become lengthy meetings if there's a lot of agenda
2
items.
hours.
So it's already on a concern, well, on Manatee County, they have 70-29 capacity versus choice, which is the other part of that. So so right now, it's not on the agenda on the construction cost piece
Right.
of 70-29. But you know, you could probably expand this discussion to go beyond capacity and choice to include construction issues.
With the example of the HVAC and the thermal plant, I think that's an excellent one-page example. I think that's a good thing to give folks, and a lot of people have looked at that. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think that should be one of ours.
Well, and we can make copies of what's proposed on your legislative platform to share with them, so if they want to also consider
Right.
that for their legislative platforms.
Right. But I'm going down to Fort Myers this week to talk with the Greater Florida's Consortium about a potential platform which we need to develop. And then next week, we're going to Charlotte and Manatee, we're going to talk about it again.
okay.
And then we're going to Lakeland or
Legoland.
Legoland in the middle of September and talk about it with FSBA.
Now we have the consortium too.
The consortium's this Friday.
Yeah, that's this Friday.
And then there's another two-day consortium
That
meeting.
meets during during the December? Yeah.
Well, what other issues,
Meeting,
meets at
it's at the
at
Legoland.
FSBA.
Yeah, there's like that.
what other issues do we want to talk about? I know one thing that was percolating last year, I don't think it passed, is to tie charter school approvals to, because they started out as they had to be unique and fill a need in the district. And in fact, I think that's one of the issues the superintendents have,
Yes, it
that
is.
charter school applications should only be approved when the proposed instructional program and growth align with the district needs. And that, I think the other thing, and districts should be authorized to deny charter applications that either do not meet a need expressed by the districts, or when sufficient student stations are available to meet the students' needs. Is that something that, it's on the one that the superintendents have, did you have that? It's on the bottom of page 4, and I think the line is that the district should be authorized to deny charter applications that either do not meet a need expressed by the local district and when sufficient student stations are available to meet students' needs, or is there something?
I have no issue with that language. I mean,
So we kind of follow that, or maybe use that whole beginning paragraph. Because I think especially when we're talking about kids from other counties and whatnot coming over and building schools, and, if we got more middle schools going in and we keep having empty spaces in our middle schools, is there, one thing that I'd like to throw out is that we repeal the language that calls for an automatic 25% increase in the, what's it called, I got a corporate scholarship fund. I could see when they were trying to grow it, but now we're at that point that they were asking. I mean, and last year it increased by 110 million. And when that language was put in there, most of the representatives and senators that are there, I mean, they weren't there.
And they didn't really know that it was escalating at that level, several of them.
And now, next year it'll be 150 million, and well, in 4 years it'll increase by another 500 million. It'll be $1 billion, and then in another 4 years it'll be $2 billion. At the same time, our legislators are wanting to roll back the capital tax, corporate income tax, and the tax that is paid on rentals for commercial leases.
How are they gonna do
That
How are they gonna do that?
and that maybe
That's the governor.
that we ask that they just put a freeze, not a freeze, I'm not saying a freeze, that we just remove that language so that they can increase it if they want to, but they have to take an action and they have to have the discussion if they're going to increase it.
I don't see how they're gonna pay for it with the reducing all the taxes.
Well, they're going to have to make a decision on, do I want to reduce the taxes or do I want to increase the scholarships?
Right.
Those are discussions that need to be made.
But I think that they have to be aware that that's the language.
Well, and I think that if
Sure,
nothing else,
some
it needs to
people
be
are
brought
not aware.
so that they're aware of what's happening, because I got blank looks when I asked the question at Tiger Bay. They didn't know about it. Or said, well, we'll just use general revenue. I'm like, no, you can't, because of, but they would put dollars back in there. I don't think we have to tell them how to use the dollars. If they don't use it, they can make their own mind whether they want to have tax breaks or whatever. But just repeal the automatic increase. Any discussion?
I defer to I see the long-term impact from a financial concern, but I personally think that it doesn't impact that many students here. I think it represents a purpose. You know where I stand on it. I get what you're saying for the rolling out of the future. I'm not sure where my position is exactly at this time.
Well,
because I believe
Bridget, with that in mind, I know how you feel about it. That's why I'm not saying we need to cut it or eliminate it. I'm just saying that take a vote if you want to increase it. And they can increase it. I'm just saying stop the automatic so you can have a discussion. I'm hoping that that's a reasonable...
I can agree with that.
That's a reasonable assumption that we can go with. I don't want to say, we don't want to be an enemy. We want to work through something, and I would like to propose that and say, because I am that kind of a person. I always want to find that balance.
Your arm break when you pat yourself on the back.
Well, that might be why I have trouble reaching back with this arm. Well, it's taken me a long time. I can get very passionate about this issue, and it's taken me a long time to come up with this what I feel is a compromise on the issue, that we can all come together. We're gonna sing Kumbaya one of these days. I want you to learn that on the drums, by the way.
I was a Boy Scout.
Uh, Anything else?
So, just,
What is the second one?
Yes, that's.
yeah, I just,
Charter schools.
Let's get back,
What about them now?
Let's get back to
Where, so it's pretty similar to what the,
That whole
ESSA,
paragraph?
yeah,
Okay.
ramifications of the ESSA.
yeah, the ESSA.
Wait, go back to the chart, what are we adding on?
If you look at what the school board,
I am.
superintendent,
Yeah,
on the bottom of
I'm at
page
5 and on charter score.
4, yeah, the charter schools, just that they have to have,
Well-
that they should fill a need.
And I think I'm
That's the
fine
first
with that
bullet.
language because need can be broad in its own terms, so I.
so that's the first bullet. That's not the whole paragraph, so just so Zoe knows what she's doing.
I have to email all this to
But this is
Charlotte.
not, we're off topic, I think, unless I'm totally confused.
I thought you were doing tri-county.
This, I thought we were identifying issues to discuss at the joint meeting.
Right.
These are,
Yes, that's what we're
We need
doing.
four
okay,
topics.
so do you want to have a discussion on the agenda regarding charter schools on your tri-county? We're not talking about your platform, which is a separate
Right.
discussion, and you might have that or you might not. But do you want a discussion between Manatee County and Charlotte County?
What I got into with them before, I think it was last year, they got all upset because we wanted to talk about stuff that we were doing. They wanted to know what our legislative issues were.
Well, you're to identify
things.
topics that you want to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
And I would put, so I don't think it's quite the
Is
same
this coming
thing.
from Charlotte or Manatee?
This is Manatee.
Oh, okay,
This
because it
is
was
what-
Charlotte County that
This is
wanted
what
the...
they discussed. And I don't think anybody at this point has all their legislative platforms
No, it's just
identified.
beginning.
So I think you need to think about an issue that might be on your legislative platform that you want to discuss.
Yeah, Charlotte County did not want to be in a meeting where we just discussed issues. Charlotte County only wanted to talk about legislative issues last year.
Well,
I mean,
and
it was kind of
I would
a...
be willing to say that any of these issues that they've identified have legislative implications. They're all, you couldn't do those just on your own. It could be one and the same, I guess I'm saying, is that if you've got FSBA, the platform, some issues to discuss on that, this is what Manatee County has, expanding VPK, impact fee versus doc stamps in terms of funding, and then the HB 7029, the capacity versus choice. I heard one area is 7029 versus the construction
Yeah.
limitation, so that'd be one issue that we would have. So what's confusing to me, do you want charter schools to be a discussion?
I don't hear anything from Charlotte County or Manatee County on charter schools.
Although Charlotte County got all bent out of shape when we had the Sky Academy that was near their borders.
But I don't hear any, yes, that. We have 2 hours, and I think these 4 issues are going to take us 2
Oh,
hours.
yeah, I agree.
The 4 that they've given us.
Yes.
It's my understanding that we're all to submit for, and that the chair at Charlotte's going to come up
Decide
with the
which ones
agenda
will be
based on
discussed.
what everybody,
Well, if we like these 4, then we can say that we like these 4.
Just come up.
Do you hear?
I think
No, I think we have
We
to,
like these 4, and that's our 4.
we'll expand on 7029 as it relates to construction. Let's just leave it at that.
Let's not make it complicated.
so submit, just say we agree with Manatee's.
That we would
And then
expand
we'll just
7029.
And then talk about construction with 729, what we talked about this morning, that would be our addition.
Okay.
I'd like to talk to them about repealing the automatic increases.
Well, we'll do that at the table. If there's
I
any
could,
time
2
left.
hours, there's no way we're getting all these in the depth and considering how much so many of us like to talk.
Because I'm lucky that I'm a quiet one.
Not.
No, if I get really riled up, I'm not.
Okay, I think I'm clear.
So we're not gonna, put repeal the automatic 25% increase on corporate
I think
scholarships?
that's something to discuss, but that's a sidebar issue. And it might go into our platform, but
Yeah, I don't think,
all this ESSA stuff.
Well, and that's more, federal level,
Yes.
obviously, although it
Although it goes down to the
it's all
states.
about the state's interpretation, and that's why
that's right.
the Superintendent
And we-
Association
yeah.
is very much, but that's more
And FSBA is already.
conversation with DOE rather than to take advantage of the flexibility that ESSA
It was
provides.
supposed to be part of the conversation, because I read that legislation from the federal government.
Well, it's been one-way discussion. It's been giving input, and now they're wanting to have some groups the superintendents want to be able to have now discussions about it.
That's how I read it.
So that it's not, oh, we got this input and now we're making the decisions. As they're making the decisions, they want to be at the table to be able to influence them, is what we're trying to get this point.
One of the things, I'm looking at this list, Manatee County wants to talk about the whole FSBA platform. I mean, really? Is that what we want to talk about there? Why wouldn't we talk about it?
Platform this year, yes.
So why are we talking about the FSBA
To
platform?
me, there's a specific thing in here, all testing for any other purposes, that's what it is, not the FSB.
They've got, I'm reading number 1, FSBA platform. Provide sufficient funding per student, restore capital outlay authority, ensure all schools receiving state funds. I don't want to talk about all that stuff.
The goal of this the three of us meeting is to share ideas and concerns, correct?
Yeah.
And we have 2 hours to do it. And
I
I think by adding a number of them on, and since it sounds like Charlotte County is the one who's finalizing the agenda, I personally, based on what we've talked about, think the 7029 construction issue is one, it's large in discussion, and it's probably on the highest of priority for us. I just think we could go through a lot of different things that ultimately won't ever end up on that agenda. And if we put one forward and they don't put it on, well, gee, thanks. So I think it makes it a little bit easier for us to zero in on something that will be relevant to all of us, because that's no matter really where anyone stands
So why don't we put 7029 alone,
with.
including both capacity and choice, which is an issue, it's just, and the construction, that would be our number 1 priority.
That's what I would propose.
That's perfect.
And only submit
And
one.
then maybe there's
And only
other
submit one,
categories.
and you can say, and certainly we're agreeable to what Manatee County, but this is our priority.
Okay.
And so at
We
least
don't want
if
to-
you
yeah.
have one that stays with it, I think Bridget's right, that's probably a way.
We might not get to, if it gets too long, then we said don't even address 7029
Yeah.
for shortage. You know, I think too many things on there. Keep it succinct.
Pages of stuff, and it's like,
People stop listening to us the first time.
Okay, so then we have to put our legislative priorities that we're going to take to our delegation and to FSBA that we're going to ask and to the consortium.
That's what we're also have to do at the Tri-County meeting?
Yeah, I think this is.
No, we don't do it at the Tri-County meeting, we're doing it now.
They have to have it ready, because
We have to give the consortium and FSBA legislative language,
Got it.
what we're looking at. So,
and that's due to
how about,
consortium the second week in September.
so that can be these 3 things that were just discussed?
Yes. I'm going down Friday to just have a planning meeting for one day, and then the actual meeting is in early September.
Is there anything else that we want to add to that list?
What 3 things?
The 7029 section,
Got that.
3 things in 720.
the charter school section, and repealing the
You want
automatic.
everything in the charter school section, or just, what is it that you want in the charter schools? If you're referring to what's on that.
And this is for the FSBA and consortium, yeah?
I will be interested in hearing what the Charter School Consortium comes up with for their legislation. I'm going to their annual meeting in, when is that? Soon, next week. In Fort Lauderdale, is it Fort Lauderdale where I'm going, or Boca, or where? I don't know, somewhere now.
Why don't we just pick this language up and put it there, and then the consortium can
And when
look
I
at,
go- when I
they
go
can
Friday-
take different items.
I'll bring back stuff to you all, I'll get it to Zoe, and Zoe can distribute whatever we come up with on Friday. How's that?
So, okay. We're gonna take the House Bill 7029 language that's in our packet. We're gonna look at the charter school language that's from page 4 and 5, and see how they want us to present that. And repeal the automatic increase, the automatic 25% increase, and maybe I should give a rationale for that, what I said for
Write
you.
it down and give it to Jane.
I'll type it out, but it doesn't stop any increases, it just says that the legislature has to affirmatively do any increases or decreases. I'll come up with the language, but it'll basically be in view of the higher cost that we're getting, plus the
That's right.
discussion about reducing the corporate income tax and the funding sources for that it's not automatic, that it comes up for discussion. Anything else that we're looking at?
No.
Now these, just because we put these forward to these organizations, doesn't mean they accept them. They have to be voted on and everything else. What about what we had from last year versus what was or was not supported?
I think you got it right, Shirley. I think you're fine. Because they have a new way of putting together the,
Well, and again, I think if nothing else, I don't think we need to add to these. 'Cause I think that
you're just gonna take it.
the 7029 is really important to us, and I think the charter schools is something that we've been saying year after year anyway. And the other one, I can get down to a few sentences, and I'll share that with all of you.
It would be great if we could have a legislative platform that we shared with the charter schools. Wouldn't it be great if we both agreed on something that we could present together, that we could...
That's a good point. Could you run this language by the charter school people in the district?
Okay.
To see.
I'm going to the mom and pop annual meeting where they'll be doing some of that. And I will certainly, but I was just thinking the other day that it would be great if we had collectively something that we agreed on to the point that we were running that up the flagpole together. I think that builds synergy and
Good point.
You know that, so you go there and see what.
but I will know when I go there because the Speaker of the House will be there and the Commissioner of Education, I'm understanding, will be there, and I'll be the black sheep. Not really, but I'm really looking forward to going.